Hey everyone, welcome to Bonehead Truckers. The video I did last night that went into pretty good detail with screenshots and everything was actually intended to be uploaded published this morning, but then this came out, and so I published that last night. If you want to go watch that after this video, it has screenshots and a lot of other stuff that they don't talk about in here, and some stuff they do talk about in this video. But I'm going to do a reaction on this. This is WFAA out of Dallas. I told you guys about this news channel, and Miss Tanya, listen, rock star. Anyway, we're going to do a reaction. I'm going to cut in and talk because there's some things I got to talk about.
Is fighting for her life right now after losing her mother, father, brother, and grandfather in that crash.
Yeah, WFAA just obtained a newly released police affidavit that reveals new details about what happened.
4 hearses left the Dallas County Medical Examiner's office carrying the McKellar family to a funeral home in Fort Worth. Jabbar McKellar, his wife Coercion, their son Kason, and Jabbar's father, Billy, all killed in the crash. The only survivor in the vehicle, Evan McKellar, lost a foot in the crash and remains in critical condition. A GoFundMe account is now open to help the family with expenses.
Investigators say it started when a semi plowed into the McKellar's pickup truck going 75 miles an hour. There was no sign the driver ever hit the brakes. Another woman named Nicole Gregory was killed when the semi jackknifed and crushed her car.
Police now say the truck driver admitted he fell asleep at the wheel.
Tonight, senior investigative reporter Tanya Iser looks at the trucking company he worked for and listens to a former driver's disturbing allegations.
My heart just kind of dropped, like, man, that a week ago, like 2 weeks ago, that could have been me.
You're hearing from a trucker who drove for Hope Trans, the same company whose truck was involved in a crash Saturday that killed 5 people in Terrell. Court records say the driver in that deadly wreck told police he fell asleep behind the wheel. The truck driver we spoke to, who asked us to conceal his identity, says he's not surprised, given what he experienced.
There was just so many red flags.
The truck driver provided us a copy of his employment agreement and showed us messages with company dispatchers, including records from a run he took last month from Atlanta to Phoenix.
They pressured me into this load.
By law, truckers can't drive more than 11 hours a day, then they must take a 10-hour break. The 1,900-mile trip normally takes 27 hours of driving. He says he did it in 34 hours.
I next day shipped it from Atlanta all the way to Phoenix off of 3 hours of sleep.
Here's the contract for that load, known as the bill of lading. It shows the departure date was backdated as well, from June 9th to June 8th.
I could have quit. I could have said no. I was one paycheck loss away from my wife and kids losing our house.
All right, so, I mean, I feel for a driver, but I've stated in these past videos, these companies, they get these drivers that are desperate. They're desperate for a job. That's how they end up with companies like this. They scrape the bottom. They don't require any experience and all this kind of stuff. Listen, if this driver that he was, the former driver, if he got caught doing that, if he got into a wreck, he would have went to jail, just like this Cuban driver did, okay? And his wife and kids would lose their house. Anyway, so it's not worth it. It's not freaking worth it. If you didn't do this load, you're going to lose your freaking house? That doesn't make freaking sense to me. You can't sit there and say, hey, I need a 10-hour break. You've got to say no, because I'm telling you, this company, the owner of this company, the mysterious owner that we think is, I'm going to call her Asshat, okay? Because that's what her name looks like. This company right here, they're still continuing operations under a different carrier by now. I don't know. We discussed that in last night's video. I'm telling you, these people are getting rich while you're sitting there struggling to pay your house note, okay, doing loads illegal. You've got to say no. Anyway, let's continue.
The trucker also provided us this message instructing drivers to hide any original paperwork.
That's illegal. It's called coercion.
This is coercion. They're coercing this guy to do something that everybody from the company safety folks to the entire industry knows what they're doing is illegal.
Dale Prax owns Freight Validate, a company that tracks fraud and identity theft in trucking. Federal records show that Hope Trans drivers were repeatedly cited for driving beyond the 11-hour driving limit.
They just acted like they didn't know how to dispatch within the law.
We also learned Hope Trans had listed a Tacoma address in federal records, but that address, a co-working space. When our sister station showed up Tuesday, the staff said the company only got mail there.
Yeah, they changed their address after we started reporting on it. Us, people on X, and now Tanya from WFAA, and probably investigators. Yeah, getting on them. Listen, guys, you don't know, the FMCSA requires you to have a mailing address, and you got to have all your safety records and everything. You have to have a place. That is FMCSA rule. If they're all there getting mail here, it's already illegal, right? But anyway.
They didn't actually work there. Here's why that's important. When a trucking company registers with the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration, or FMCSA, it's required to list a principal place of business. That means a real physical address, not just a mailbox or a P.O. box. It's supposed to be where driver and safety records are kept, and where federal inspectors can show up unannounced to check those records.
If I was an investigator and I went to look at those records, within 24 hours of the accident, where would I find them?
But 2 days after the deadly crash, federal records show the company's address suddenly changed. Gone was the Washington State address, replaced by an apartment in Orlando.
Yep, that was us. We exposed that. That where their company was, and then after that, they changed. They knew hell was coming after them.
Why did they have that address in Washington at a virtual office in the first place?
Back in May, WFAA uncovered trucking companies violating those rules, including 20 companies registered to this virtual mailbox on West Commerce Street in Dallas.
So they wouldn't actually be physically here?
No, they would not be working here physically, no.
We also found nearly 700 companies tied to this single address in Signal Hill, California. And get this, roughly 500 of them list the same email, WTFFMCSA@AOL.com.
We're finding that a huge percentage of the bad guys list a virtual office address because they don't want to be tracked. They don't want to be found.
We reached out to the CEO of Hope Trans, Ashat Magomedova, multiple times by phone and email. She did not respond.
If you were describing this company to somebody that might be thinking about going to go work for them, what would you tell them?
I would tell them stay far away. Companies like this, it's a very big problem. There's probably thousands and thousands of trucks just like these people on the road that have not gotten any sleep. And it's hard to put a stop to it.
Yeah, it's hard to put a stop to it. But here's the deal. You got people like us here on Bonehead Truckers. We started in on Super Ego and companies like that last year. What we just did, we had people calling in, I gotta give you my story and all this kind of stuff. They were in the same situation you are. They're hard up on money, and those companies, they prey on that, and their dispatchers are from overseas. Okay, they don't know what they're doing. Okay, you as a driver have to put your foot down. What we're doing here is exposing them. Okay, we're fighting these people. We're fighting these companies, these foreign freaking companies coming over here, and most of them are from Eastern Europe. Okay, most of them are from Russia and all those countries out there. They're preying on drivers just like this guy that is, in desperate need of some money. Okay, and maybe some of these mega carriers, whoever, won't touch them for some unknown reason. A good trucking company, so they go here. Okay, there's numerous reasons why people come to a company like this. And, this driver obviously sounds American. With that Cuban driver, I mean, he just wanted to go over here and make some money and no one would hire him because he's on a temporary visa. And now he ran over people.
We reached out to federal regulators and they said they're working on it. On Tuesday, Governor Greg Abbott tweeted out our story from Monday and said he's asked the Texas Department of Public Safety to expand its investigation. In Dallas, I'm Tanya Iser.
Listen, this lady right here is doing a fantastic job exposing these trucking companies, and she's doing it on the mainstream media. ABC out of Dallas, one of the largest channels, largest news channels in the country, and she's out here doing the freaking Lord's work, okay, exposing these companies just like we are, okay. So shout out to this lady right here, WFAA, Dallas, Texas, Channel 8. All right, I'm just saying, listen, we're working our tails off here, all right, and man, hopefully nothing happens this weekend, July 4th weekend, but if something does, I'll be here. Subscribe to the channel, okay, for more content. I appreciate you guys watching Bonehead Truckers. We gone.